the Evolution Security Podcast.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Evolution Security Podcast. This is Aaron and Eric Davis, the Tactical Twins, here for another great show. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing wonderful, man. It's been kind of a long last couple of weeks. Just looking forward to hanging out and talking about our awesome guest, man.
Oh, yeah. Who's that guest we have, buddy?
Cecil Burch of Immediate Action Combatives, man. What an excellent person, awesome instructor. I'm so glad now to count him as one of our new instructors. So, man, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Count him as a huge mentor now, and this class that we had with him was frankly life-changing. Not surprising, but it's just always wonderful when you have those times where you know something changed in your path, and it was just one of those times. And I know that all the other students, so many of them feel the exact same way. So it's awesome we have Cecil on here to recount a lot of that.
Yeah, and Aaron, it's pretty cool when, I've trained in other classes where Cecil was a student, and I've been following him for years, been a friend of his for years, but haven't had a chance to take his courses, and I knew he was going to deliver, and like we're going to hit in the show, he delivered exponentially. So, yeah, man, it's going to be a good interview, man. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good one. You want to jump into it?
Let's do it.
A few weeks ago, we had the pleasure of hosting Cecil Burch here in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Clinch Martial Arts. You heard us talk about it a little bit coming up on the show, but we wanted to go ahead and give a after-action report on that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I think a great way to handle this would be to start out with a few, some information that we got from some of the students that attended. So I'm going to start out here. I'm going to read something from John. He said, being that I have never taken any focus combatives training, I had some uncertainties coming into the weekend. These were immediately squashed when we started on ground Sunday. Having some jiu-jitsu under my belt really helped, and corrections that Cecil and Guy helped me with made an immediate impact. The way we tested how well we did against a resisting partner showed where you were deficient or where you were doing okay. I think that Sunday was the most impactful for me, as standing and getting into the clinch from a sudden attack were an unknown for me. Again, the quality of instruction and then on-the-spot coaching were of the highest value. I really enjoyed Cecil and Guy's instruction and the way they delivered it. I'm looking forward to training with them again. Aaron and Eric, thanks for hosting. Cecil and Guy, thank you for starting me out on the right foot. Which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
That was from our buddy John. I'm going to read something real quick from my wife. She sent to me here. Okay. She stated, I am very proud of myself for participating in and completing Cecil's seminar. I am better prepared defensively for going, or as Eric says, I'm now harder to kill. I loved Cecil's technique, starting simple with the foundation as he, quote, built the house bit by bit, rep by rep, adding more skill and precision and adding in weapons and intensity as the class built skills and confidence along with his plan. The class participants were amazing. Every single one of them gave their all and had fantastic attitudes and control. I look forward to working with them again one day. This was an amazing experience that I will remember forever.
Man, those are awesome, man. And it did, both of those captured what I saw in the clients in the class. So I'm going to go ahead and read one more. This is from our friend Chris. Taking Cecil's course was one of the toughest and most rewarding experiences I've had in the training environment. He presents the curriculum in a simple, straightforward manner and not only demonstrates how to utilize the techniques, but more importantly, why and when to use them. Practical, real-world application was the priority. I've been practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 2 years, and the groundwork Cecil presented, both with and without weapons, really proved to me how important grappling is to have in your arsenal. The standing clinch work on the third day was a revelation. Everything made so much sense. It was hard work, it was fun, and I learned a ton. I will be taking the course again and highly recommend anyone interested in true self-defense to do so as well. Lastly, you don't have to know Jiu-Jitsu to take the course, but I would highly encourage someone to do so. Even 6 months of regular training will give you a great base for this course. Many thanks to Cecil and Guy for coming to train with us, and to the EvoSec crew for bringing them. Yeah, that's awesome. Really, really cool experiences from some of the folks. And, obviously Aaron and I are going to get into further our experience. But man, Cecil, what an experience. We want to go ahead and thank you for the incredible training and your friendship as well. Welcome to the show again. This is the third time. You're our only third
No way.
time. Yep, you are. Welcome back, brother.
I was going to bring that up. You are the king now 3 times.
Nice. Even above Craig and Tom. Nice.
Yep.
Yep.
Right on. I can live with that. No, it was good. It was a great seminar. I mean, not from, because I was a great instructor, but the people were great. It was it was an interesting group because it was pretty much evenly split between pretty much total noobs and people who had some experience. So it was really interesting. And, you had guys with, we had a couple big monsters in the class, and then we had, some smaller, less bulky people in the class. So it was a really interesting mix, and everybody was just great. It made I'm telling you, my job was so easy teaching a group like that. That was easy peasy. So thanks for setting it up, guys. That was a fun trip. And just getting back to Tulsa was, that was awesome.
Well, Cecil, it's not going to be the last, and we'll kind of hit on this here in just a moment about some similarities to the Shivworks collective content, starting obviously with the foundation of ECQC and Craig's curriculum and how your curriculum supports that. But we'll hit on that here in a second. But again, Cecil, it was really cool also to really honestly, knowing myself, because I've trained with you several times over the years, knowing that your content was going to be extremely valuable. But I'll tell you, it was exponentially more than I honestly expected. And I'm saying that bar was so high from the beginning that the way that you and Guy delivered was just outstanding. I don't want to overemphasize the fact that there was so much experience level in that class. Just like ECQC, you can learn from never being in a fight in your life, never having any training, all the way up to black belt, MMA stud in ECQC. Your curriculum does exactly the same thing, but also with an added breadth that ECQC can't cover. And that's nothing against Craig whatsoever. He's a brilliant instructor. What he does changes everybody's lives that attend. The point is what you do is what Craig can't, because he's got all the live fire and has to expose people to the whole problem. You take what the problem combatives piece is and you expand on it to an incredible degree. So yeah, I can't emphasize that part enough.
Well, thanks. Yeah, Craig's got 22 hours plus over 2 days and a evening, and he's got to cover so much stuff. Just the breadth of what he has to cover is just enormous. I get to come in and go, all right, I'm going to look at this slice. You've already messed up. You've already messed up all the other things, managing unknown contacts and all this other stuff. You're now in a fight. You're either on the ground or you're on your feet, but you've got to fight. So I get to bypass a lot of the stuff that Craig has to cover in ECQC, and I can go deeper. So maybe mine's not necessarily as broad a curriculum in the class, but it's deeper, but it's not different. It's just,
right. Absolutely.
Craig can't, he can only spend X amount of time. I get to spend 3 hours, two plus hours on default cover. He gets 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because he's also got to cover all. I don't have to cover muck. Muck's a hard, I teach that in my close contact handgun class. That's a lot. Teaching muck is really hard. The fact that I don't have to do it in my immediate action combatives coursework, man, makes my life so much easier when we go, all right, let's get into the weeds on the fighting part.
Hey, Cecil, I just had to say, my arm still hurts. Speaking of 3 hours.
You know who I'm not hearing any complaining from? Becky. So suck it up.
That's right, man. Becky was a champ.
She was glad having her, man. She was a warrior and a half, man.
Well, and I'd like to say that she was very, very close to not coming on Sunday because she was in so much pain.
Yep.
And she felt horrible about thinking maybe I'm not going to be able to finish the class. And man, I seriously, when I saw her walk in the door, I was super pumped. And I was like, yep, Becky didn't want to lose out on this. And I explained to her, and Aaron was explaining to her as well. You would have not faulted her in her condition because, for our audience out there, she's about to have back surgery because it's gotten that bad. But I told her, I was like, listen, nobody's going to fault you if you can't finish.
Nope.
So don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
But she showed up anyway, and I was pumped about it, and she did awesome. It was great training with her because I hadn't trained with Becky since she's been in jiu-jitsu and she's received her blue belt, and so I've not trained with her since then. She used to train at Gibson's for a little while back in the late 90s, so I trained with her back then. But yeah, it was incredible training with her. Yeah, Aaron, what you got, man?
Well, when you were talking about how it goes with the depth of the material, I mean, it's you don't go as broad as Craig, but there's still quite a bit of stuff to cover. But I did, even though I'm whining about my arm, I really did enjoy the work on getting into the clinch. That's when you're in, to be honest, when you're kind of going through the motions in a normal jiu-jitsu class, they put a helmet on and kind of just wiggle into a clinch, and there's just unfortunately not a lot of work on that. I think at a lot of gyms, and so that was great for me. And I didn't expect to go over as much of the pistol work that we did. And so that was one thing that I was really excited for Becky to get involved in, because she hadn't been exposed really to the thumb pectoral index and any indexing whatsoever. And it also exposed to me, man, how how effective you can be with just some blue guns.
Oh yeah.
So
Every time that it's been a while since I've done scenario work with just blue guns, I get pissed at myself because I don't implement it as much now. Full disclosure, I just moved and I'm just developing a new training, set of friends that I feel like want to train in these methodologies. But at the same time, the 3 years that I ran my CQS class at my old jiu-jitsu gym, it was just commonplace. I mean, everything I was doing was weapons-based every single Saturday. And Aaron, it was a good reminder. It's like plugging in the blue guns more often for myself, which I'm going to talk about later in the show. One of my major mistakes I made that I think is important for everybody to hear. And in all honesty, that's based on my many times of taking ECQC and all the weapons-based environment. I think it's an important lesson. So we'll hit on that a little bit later. But one of the things I kind of want to segue into, Cecil, is really talk about or dive deeper into the jiu-jitsu content as it relates to your number one. I want to be clear. I don't want the audience members to think that I'm mentioning, okay, we simply went over basics. It wasn't basics. It was fundamentals. Again, fundamentals that work for everybody from no experience all the way to black belt. And it's kind of like, so I'm a 3-stripe blue belt mid-level. I've been exposed to essentially everything that we went over, minus there was some new stuff to me, don't get me wrong. It was your approach to the building blocks is like a Rosetta Stone in how to approach my own game from moving forward. From now on, the content we worked on has already shaped. I mean, our half guard work that we went over, I made the decision that all three of the half guard techniques we worked, that's all I'm going to do right now, half guard wise.
Okay.
It's just that it was that impactful for me that that's what I'm going to do. It's like, this is going to be my half guard game. I might still keep a little bit of the butterfly half stuff that I've kind of picked up over the way, but yeah, it was impactful for sure. That said, I want to make sure that I don't want to go over a lot of details, but I want to tell the audience, and maybe you can kind of talk about your philosophy on the way that you approach escaping from the bottom. Essentially, your escape philosophy that we worked on all afternoon. So and I'll just say this, we worked from side control the whole afternoon. And some folks that are possibly uninitiated would think, well, we're going to go over some other escapes from the mount, from neon belly, from whatever. And whatever you'd like to go over and talk about on that was also hugely impactful to me.
Well, when I first started teaching and doing the coursework, it was pretty much geared for that person who's going to ECQC and who doesn't have any background. That was the original, 2005, 2006, 2007. And so I started like, what does this person need? What are the things that they absolutely have to survive this environment? And then just adding on those little bits and pieces. And what I found was that if you do this correctly and you approach it from a conceptual standpoint, not as a bunch of techniques, what ends up happening, and you have this framework and the structure and the principles, and you approach it that way, then what happens is all these other people are getting it too, are getting benefits too. They're all learning these things too. Purple belts, brown belts go, I've never thought of the escape that way. My UPA sucks. and I never realized why I could never use my UPA before, my hip lift before. And it's those little things, approaching it from that way, from that building block. It's fundamentals. I like the word like essentials or critical skills, or critical skills, because it's what, fundamentals, even fundamentals. Sometimes people go, yeah, code word for basics. Well, but yeah, it is. But really what fundamentals are the essentials. They're the critical skills you need. Everything else is just applying those in denser, more complex environments. But if you don't have that, foundation, then things start to fall apart. The wheels come off pretty quick. So when I started working this, it was like, okay, what worked for me? How did I start to figure this stuff out? And I just basically translated this idea that, because I'm not any particular great athlete. I'm not some genius at martial arts that figured this stuff out like on my own. Like, I didn't go to bed one night and have some dream where a tiger's fighting a crane, and then I come up with a fighting system out of it. It's trial and error and doing the work and logging the hours in. Okay, this is what works for me. Understanding escapes from this conceptual idea of what do we need? Where do we need to start from? Because you can't just arbitrarily just throw in an escape. It's like, yeah, but what if you're? So I'll give you a perfect example. So last night I'm rolling with my professor, and the way he had taken me down, or he had actually swept me and foot swept me. And so he had passed my guard and he had got a cross collar grip from essentially side control. So just trying to turn my hips or do something, it was irrelevant because he had such good control over my collar that my head was frozen. So before I worked the escape, I had to deal with that control. I had to figure out, well, how do I free up enough room for my head so I could do the next step, as opposed to just, well, I'm going to do technique 37A. Well, it ignores where you're starting from. So you've got to have a good, safe place to start from. Then you need to understand, well, why is this working? Well, because I've got the room and the space to pull these moves off. And I know what are the high percentage moves, the ones that are built on leverage and mechanics. And then I know where I'm going. I know my end states where I want to be, as opposed to I'm going through this technique sequence. Like, no, it's like a map, right? I'm not don't give me directions, right? I'm not good at following, go here, turn right here. No, tell me where it's at and let me look at the map and I'll figure out. Like I rarely do, on Google Maps, I rarely do the voice directions. I don't need it. I just need a general idea of the main things that I need to look for along this route and where I'm going. And I kind of do that in jiu-jitsu, and I try to give people the same thing. So you come up with your own directions, basically, on doing this kind of stuff. And it works pretty well. Because again, like I said, I have people who are brand new to jiu-jitsu, who've never done any grappling, no hand-to-hand training at all. And I'll have higher level jiu-jitsu guys come in and go, oh yeah, that was really good. I've never seen that. I've not seen it done that way, or never thought of presenting it that way. But getting away from, here's a technique, here's another technique, which just doesn't do anybody any good, in the heat of the moment, because you can't remember any of it. But if you can remember those basic principles, all right, I got to be safe here. How do I be safe? Okay, I'm doing this, this, and this. Okay, cool. Then I need to move in a way that I have space to start doing what I need to do. Okay, how do I do that? This, and this, and this. Okay, cool. Where am I trying to end up? Here and here and here. Okay, good. Boom. And it becomes much easier to do that. And it's arbitrary. I do side control. We do so much with side control because side control has so many options that it's really hard to deal with. But then, then after we do that and I give everybody, and I'm seeing, because I'm paying attention to what the students are doing, and I'm looking. And once I get an idea that they're following and they've got the right idea and they've been pretty successful as we up the pressure, then we can take that half step back and go, all right, so we've been doing against side control, but here's how you look at it with mount. Here's how you apply it when he's mounted. Here's how you apply it when you got knee on belly. Here's how you apply it when he's north-south. Here's where he's got Kesugatami. Here's where he got reverse Kesugatami, on and on and on. And you go, see, it's the same thing. And then so now you empower people to figure out their own ways to get out of this. They know the little things that they need to do. And then it becomes, it's much more universal, right? I'm not just giving you some techniques. Now you've got this formula that you can make work. When I'm not standing over you coaching you, or when you're not watching a video of me, you're just doing it on your own, in your own academy or in a training group with friends. You're not like, well, what was the next step in this technique? Well, it doesn't matter. Figure it out. You know what you need to do.
Well, and Cecil, if I can comment, it was probably the biggest impact on the using the exact methodology and formula on the knee on belly escape. I'm like, because I have some decent knee on belly escapes, but again, you hit it on the head. It's like we have a lot of techniques in jiu-jitsu, and it's almost like sometimes, even though we practice jiu-jitsu in an effective manner, anybody that trains in Brazilian jiu-jitsu trains in effective methodologies because that's the way Brazilian jiu-jitsu has been passed down. But then there are also times where we almost go into disparate methodologies that, again, your philosophy on the escape just is like brings it together. And it was when we use the exact same escape that we use for side control with knee on belly, and like, boom, there's my new knee on belly. And I hit that 3 times the other evening.
Oh, nice. Good.
It's like, yeah, there's just not going to be another knee on belly escape that I'm going to use very much unless just something falls apart. I don't see that happening. But yeah, that was really cool. And I'd like to digress 1 second. We kind of breezed over because we've had Cecil on the show 2 other times. But for new audience members, Cecil's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Megaton Diaz. So everything he's teaching, again, works for everybody of all walks of life in Jiu-Jitsu. And I just want to push everybody to make sure, if you don't know a lot about Cecil, go back to episodes 15 and 46, because they're outstanding episodes, so you can learn a lot more about Cecil's background. But anyway, awesome discussion on your escape philosophy. That's kind of what I was wanting to get out of it.
All right, we're going to take a real quick break and mention our sponsor, Tenacor. Now, we've told you guys time and time again that they build some of the best pressure test gear available. I just want to mention something that we've touched on, but want to speak a little bit more on it, which is their Abdo AIWB mag pouch. Now, be rest assured that Jeff and his crew put a lot of R&D into that mag pouch to make sure it was as good as it gets, and that it would stand up again to pressure testing and in the real world hold your mags where they're supposed to go. And they actually have 3 different sizes, and I'm just going to name off a few of the pistol mags that they cover, which would be the G48, 43, the PDP, PPQ, the XD9, the P365, the FNX9, of course, Glock 19s and 17s, M&P. I mean, the list goes on into the one of the sizes fits the staccato mags. So, I mean, super cool product that you really should go check out. Now, go to their website, which is tenacor.com, and find something that you like. And when you do, at checkout, use the discount code EVOSEC at checkout. That's EVOSEC, and that'll get you 10% off.
Awesome. Man, I can't believe I haven't ordered one. We gave Jeff such a hard time about that, and it's time for me to jump on and grab a few of those myself. One little side note, just your instruction methodologies too. I'll just hit on this. Thank you for the handouts. A lot of instructors, I mean, I'm not used to that except in some of our community. And I actually had those open today when I was just thinking over some of the things I'm working on and continuing to implement. Yep, Aaron's got them right there. So to me, that's outstanding. And again, a attribute, or excuse me, just a really excellent professionalism that I think a lot of folks could learn from. That said, I kind of want to flow with the advance of the class, and so we work all day on those escapes. We work on adding in the weapon, in fight weapons access, and you had us drill using the same escapes, just adding in the weapons, and folks very easily start flowing into, okay, I don't want to get that thing stuck in me, or I don't want that muzzle on me, taking notional shots. And again, the methodology builds so easily to where even if folks haven't had a lot of dealing with controlling weapons, it just starts, very easily. It's visceral almost at that point because of how we built on the class. But I kind of want to hit on my very bad mistake in the Evo that day. And so I'll just say his first name, young police officer in Arkansas, Josiah. Shout out to you out there, buddy. It was excellent training with you. So this is just kind of a learning experience and warning to folks that, like myself, have a huge ton of weapons-based grappling. And when we did this Evo, I've been spending about, even though COVID and all that whatnot, I still grapple with weapons, but it hasn't been to the point where I normally do. And this is the most important lesson I think I got from that day was that I got to make sure that every single month I'm doing some decently intense weapons grappling. And again, used to do that often. But I've been focusing on my jiu-jitsu because my goals I've met goals in my weapons-based grappling. I've met goals in my shooting. I haven't met my goals in my jiu-jitsu. And so that's been my focus. And over the last year and a half, 2 years, that's been my main focus. And in the Evo, when we could plug in weapons, my orthodox jiu-jitsu took over. And, I'll go all the details, but essentially, I passed Josiah's guard, and, there's this part of me, it's like, hey, knee on belly, I'm gonna go knee on belly, and I'm gonna access my weapon. Bad timing mistake. When my personal understanding of weapons-based environment, I know I got to control the hands, but my orthodox jiu-jitsu kind of took over in that situation. And I learned a hard lesson, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm accountable to myself and to our audience members that, listen, guys, you got to make sure if you're doing awesome in your jiu-jitsu, we can't fool ourselves into not making sure that we're keeping that weapons-based focus in the forefront. Can you talk on that, Cecil?
Sure. I would actually argue that it's not orthodox jiu-jitsu that was the mistake. That's here's the mistake is thinking that everything's equal, thinking that everything's the same, that we can do jiu-jitsu, that we can do weapons, that we can do weapons with jiu-jitsu. Here's the problem is here's where because I've got to, I'm watching, right? I'm watching from the outside. Here's the mistake, and you wouldn't have made that mistake in jiu-jitsu. The problem with knee on belly is it's not a good, solid control over the other person's hips.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
That's why in jiu-jitsu, especially for knee on belly, you need some control. You need some limb control, right? You need usually the near side arm, maybe the sleeve, maybe the arm itself, whatever, and probably, generally, the collar, right? Generally, cross collar is a good control. Sometimes it can be the far lapel. That works too. But what's happened, so in jiu-jitsu, you're controlling that. So then you can then pick, oh, now I could go to a straight armbar. Oh, he's trying to push my knee off so I could go to a kimura or something along those lines. And then at that point, it's okay that you're releasing the limbs because you're probably still attacking. Where the mistake that you made was, so when you got knee on belly, but what happens when you go for the weapon?
Well, obviously it was a timing error first off, because I didn't have control of the limbs, and you just hit it on the head. The balance issue.
You that's the thing. Knee on belly is so hard on balancing. I'm not a huge fan on knee on belly. You rarely see me do knee on belly very much. I know it was real popular a lot of times to teach law enforcement guys that. I don't like teaching that. I think, especially for somebody with a low level of training and not putting a lot of time into it, knee on belly is really bad. And you had a good knee on belly. That's the thing to don't overlook. You had a really good knee on belly position. The problem, two problems. Number one, Josiah was paying attention to what we did the entire day.
Yeah.
And he knew what he needed to do to disrupt you and to look for the escape. The other problem, and it's not orthodox jiu-jitsu, it's not understanding when we need to do these things. Because when you go for the weapon, what do you almost always have to do?
Well,
you have to use your hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And most of the time, we generally use both hands to go for that weapon, don't we?
Yep. Yeah. And that's as I reflected on it, because again, it was a stinging lesson. And again, I'm not all that. I don't claim that at all. I have a lot of hours, 7 ECQCs, 1 EWO, a lot of experience in dealing with that environment. And I know better than not to at least have some form of control. I just found it interesting how easily I slid into that mistake and that timing error. And I think that's it's painful for me talking about it over the air, but I'm gonna be straight up and honest with my audience members, and I want them to learn from my mistakes as much as I would much rather have learned that mistake in a training environment. But again, we know the formula is a timing error is that you have not controlled the limb closest to the weapon. And I mean, that's ingrained in me, but still yet there was that lapse of judgment in the moment. And it was just a very, very good, a good lesson. And I wanted to make sure that I hit on that in the discussion.
Well, and the thing to keep in mind was the reason you got there was because of your orthodox jiu-jitsu, right? You got to a position of control. You passed the guard in a perfect guard pass. Straight out of, any jiu-jitsu guy goes, that was a good pass. Right in knee on belly. The knee on belly was good control. Everything up to that moment was good orthodox jiu-jitsu. And then the mistake was assuming that all superior positions are equal to each other.
Yep.
And they're not.
That's awesome. Yeah.
They're not. Here's the problem. We tend to lump all top positions into the same.
Yep.
especially when we're talking about from a self-defense perspective, especially when we start talking about weapons. We start to look at this in a nebulous way that is a top position. Well, you guys saw yourself. Side control presents certain issues. Mount presents certain issues. Knee on belly, certain issues, both from a negative and a positive, both from your perspective of having that control and the negatives of having that control. And so just having a top position, this is what I try to get across when I set the framework up, Friday night, is I'm talking about, the finish has to be whatever is contextually appropriate. Part of what's contextually appropriate is, all right, where are you at right now? Can you do what you want to do from that position, right? We know in jiu-jitsu that if I go to knee on belly, that it's going to be really hard to go to a leg lock from there, right? I'm going to have to do a major adjustment, right? I'm going to have to do essentially a reverse S mount or something like that or I'm going to have to give up knee on belly to turn into the guy to get the leg lock, right? So we know in jiu-jitsu, we're not going to go for a leg lock from knee on belly. We might do it from side control or reverse kesugatomi. Do you see what I'm trying to get at?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're not all the same. They each have their own little nuances and things that you need to understand. And you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that just from doing jiu-jitsu. You're not going to get that just from shooting and then thinking you can plug the weapon into the jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
It's its own thing. And you need to understand, okay, I could do a couple attacks, a couple arm locks and a couple chokes, depending on the clothing, from knee on belly. I could throw a couple decent strikes from knee on belly. That's about it.
Yep. Yeah, and Cecil, what's interesting is most of the time I use knee on belly as one of my main transitions to mount.
Sure, absolutely.
Because again, you just try to throw your, one of the beginner mistakes you can make is just try to just shoot the knee over and it's easy to get put back in half guard. So yeah, main thing I use knee on belly for is to establish a little bit of dominant position, but I'm typically aiming and I do the knee slide into to mount, and then I start working my arm bar game.
Well, then think about it. So think about that. So in Orthodox Jiu-Jitsu, you didn't do in the class what you do in Orthodox Jiu-Jitsu. But if you had, right? Yep. If you'd have just held that knee on belly and transitioned to mount and then gone for your weapon, what do you think your chance of success would have been?
In my AAR to myself, it would have been a lot more successful because it's exactly what I thought. I was like, why didn't I go? Yeah. Why did I not do my knee slide to mount?
Absolutely. But see, that's what we have to be careful about this being too, not derogatory. That's not the right word, but being a bit more dismissive about the individual components. Yeah. Right.
And that's why you being the coach, I love this discussion because I think my mind wraps around the orthodoxy.
Sure.
When it's not the orthodoxy, that's the problem. You're exactly. See, that's why
it's just like shooting.
Discussion.
It's just like with shooting, right? If we shoot orthodox shooting all the time, and there's a chance of an entanglement, what's going to happen? We're going to get our gun fed to us, right?
Yep.
But is that is that orthodox shooting problem?
No,
it's so we've got to figure out where that transition is, and then we have to train the transition. You don't throw shooting out, you don't throw jiu-jitsu out, you don't throw boxing out, you don't throw wrestling out, whatever the components are. But the important thing is when we bring them together, you have to figure out how to make that piece its most efficient, right? It's its own thing. Yeah. Should you have a pretty good understanding of jiu-jitsu? Sure. Should you have a decent handle on weapons? Sure. But just having those two things doesn't mean that you're going to automatically do that combined component correctly. It's still its own thing. And there's all these little nuances that happen all the time, right? Because that's what I'm watching you do this, right? You had that great bullfighter pass. You went to good knee on belly, and I thought, oh, you know what Eric's going to do? He's going to slide right into mount, and then he's going to zap him. And then I'm like, why are you going for weapons right now? It was just that thing. And it's not a particular blame on anything. It's just a particular blame on we made an error in the heat of the moment. But that's why you train. So you get that stuff out and you go, okay. I was just talking to my professor about this last night, where I was so mad that I didn't see this one thing that I could have done to get out. I was doing good enough to keep from tapping, but I couldn't, finish the escape. And we were talking about that heat of the moment thing. It's really hard to remember all these things in the heat of the moment. So you know how you overcome that? Is you do it, and then when you fail, that goes in the memory bank as this visceral thing that's kind of bubbling around that you won't do it again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maybe when it counts.
That's
guys,
what I think. Go ahead, Aaron.
I just wanted to. I've been waiting for a little bit of a little point to jump in here because I don't want to let this pass in this conversation, because I think so many people could be encouraged by this specific thing that I want to talk about. So, Becky and I, we actually two things. I would go with Becky in some of the evos because I wanted to make sure she didn't get hurt, and I can't just manhandle her either. It's not. I'm not just going to take her down and just dominate her because her jits is better than mine. So, but we were in our little evo, and there was a position where she started going for her gun. And right when she did it, she said, uh-oh, because she knew I was going to get it. Well, I got it pretty quick. And then I couldn't even see it, but Cecil, you did. You go, Aaron, what'd you just do there? You just shot yourself in the femoral artery. And, both of us in that situation made a couple of errors, but she beat herself up over that. And here's what I really want to ram home here is that I kept telling her, I said, honey, Cecil doesn't care one bit if you make a mistake. Everybody in that class doesn't care. Eric doesn't. I don't. If you go to Craig's class, he won't. Paul Sharp's. You go to any of your guys' great training, it is never about who wins. And I just can't. Can you just talk about that, Cecil? Because you're the perspective that a lot of people are concerned about. Cecil's going to see me mess up, or Craig's going to see me mess up, and that's just not an issue. But it's still hard. Again, the person that we're trying to encourage. By the way, audience, we're trying to encourage you to get into Cecil's training 100% because we had such a good experience. But part of my imploring you to get into this training is to encourage you to not be embarrassed to mess up. And now, why is that? Why should they not be embarrassed, Cecil?
Because we're all gonna mess up. I mess up. My professor messes up. Craig's going to mess up. Paul's going to mess up. We all, at some point, if we're truly doing hard training against our peers, and we're being authentic, and we're not putting limitations on what the guy can do and all that kind of stuff, we're all going to mess up. I messed up last night rolling with my professor. Literally, I'm not even 24 hours out from that. I'm like 18 hours out from 20 hours out from last night messing up. We all do it. Here's what I care about. If you mess up, Do you understand why you messed up? Or will you listen to me explain why you messed up? And then you work to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's all I care about. I expect, listen, if I have a class full of people who do everything perfect, why are they paying me money to teach them? It doesn't make any sense. If they're doing everything perfect and they're just boom, 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 100%. Oh, everything's perfect. Boom, boom, boom. Get the move as soon as I show it. Boom, 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 boom. They don't need me. They shouldn't be in the class. I'm not. There's no way. I'm not helping them. I'm helping the person who doesn't know or who's not good enough yet or who doesn't understand those things. And then that's where the mistakes are going to happen. And that's where I get to fix them. That's my favorite form of teaching. Not me standing up there and going, hey, do this, and this. My favorite thing is, and you guys saw it. All right, here's the stuff. This is what we're going to do. And then what did I spend the rest of X amount of time doing? I'm walking around and I'm performance coaching each individual person that needs it. Oh, this person's doing good. I don't have to say anything. Oh, this person's really good, but he's messing up his hand. Hey, watch that because this. Cool. Oh, this person's having tons of problems. They're making mistakes. Great. Let's look. Why are those mistakes happening? Where's the problem? And then let's fix it. I want you to make mistakes because that's how we fix it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome.
If you're trying to pretend otherwise, I'm never going to see anything. You're going to walk out of there going, I'm going to keep making the same mistakes because I hid it from Cecil, right? Or Craig or Paul or Tom Gibbons. All right. Anybody decent, not just hand-to-hand stuff, but it's the same way in shooting. If you're taking Tom's class, any of his pistol class or shotgun class, whatever, and you're having an issue, and when he's walking up and down the line and you go, I hope he's not paying attention to me, and then he walks past, well, he's not going to help you. But if you're like, hey, Tom, man, look at this target. I'm screwing that up. Boom. He's going to go, well, let's see. Let's see what you're doing. And then when you walk away from here at the end of the weekend, you won't ever make that mistake again. So that I think the problem with this stuff is people see the fully formed instructor, me. They see me after 42 years of training. They see Craig after 40 years of training, Larry after 45 years of training, then Tom after whatever ungodly amount, right? They see all these guys teaching and they think, well, that's this level up here. We all screw up. We all make these mistakes, right? Tom is really good about whenever he shoots, whenever he gets time to do his own training, he'll put up on social media, he'll put up like a course of fire and he'll put up his score and it's, a 97. He's not putting up the 100%er. He's not putting up the perfect score. He's like, hey, I got a 97. I had these 2 flyers or this, I was overtime. Right? Because we all make those mistakes. None of us are going to do this perfectly. So we don't expect none of us expect students to.
And
right?
Cecil, that's precisely why I wanted to use my example to really discuss this and really make sure, again, Aaron hit it on the head. We want people to take this training and for me to be able to learn so impactfully from that lesson was just super valuable, that I want to make sure that I air, because our audience deserves to hear that we all make mistakes, and what's the outcome of not training is, I think, the biggest factor. Yeah.
I was just talking to my professor about this last night. I remember pretty much every single loss I've had in a jiu-jitsu tournament. Every single match where I lost. And I can usually tell you why I lost. I can tell you, I lost this many points because of this, or he tapped me with this, or whatever. I only vaguely remember the wins. All right, gold medal Pan Ams, couple gold medals, few years in a row at American Nationals, whatever. Second, silver second place at World Masters and Europeans. Oh, whatever. One or two of those I remember pretty well. But most of the important lessons that I take to heart are the ones where I lose, where I made a mistake. Oh man, I can't believe I let that happen. But I'll tell you what, I have never lost in a jiu-jitsu tournament the same way twice. Not one. It's always different, right? It's because I learned from it and I took that, I made a mistake. There's the error. So I learned from it. All right, not to say I'm never going to make another error, because of course we're going to make another error. But each one I'm learning from. I'm not repeating the same mistake over and over and over. Oh, Cecil, you lost 4-2 in this jiu-jitsu tournament the same way you lost 6 months ago or 2 years ago. Nope, never going to happen, because I'm going to take that lesson. And like you said, yeah, you screwed up on one of the final exercises. Yeah, great. I bet you never, ever make that mistake again for the rest of your life. You're going to carry that with you for the next 30, 40, 50 years. You're going to go, I know a Neon Belly. I'm not going for a weapon from Neon Belly. Boom.
Yep. I'm going for my mount, and I'm going for control.
Right.
Well, see, guys, that's why it's great that we're talking about this, because, so two things. I think a lot of people sit on the sidelines and don't get training because they don't want to get embarrassed by messing up, and then circling back again because they think they're going to let a great instructor down. But it just can't be stressed enough that any type of, it's just anything. Guys won't go take a shooting class. They won't go to an IDPA match on the weekend just because they don't. I know it's apparently being embarrassed is one of the highest demotivators there is. But if you can just get across to people that everybody at the match I shot at this weekend, every single person there wanted everybody there, from the master class guys in our squad to the people that had never shot there before, that you had to tell them to watch their muzzle. We wanted everybody there, right? Same thing with these courses. We want everybody to come in. Now, let's be very clear. Taking this class from Cecil is not an easy class. You're not going to have an easy time from the weekend. Some classes you're going to pick, you're going to have an easier time. You might have more fun just shooting some bullets, but at the same, and I love those classes too, but you're going to work hard in Cecil's class or any of the Shivworks guys, but you're going to learn some stuff, and don't let being embarrassed or concerned that you're going to let somebody down keep you from getting the training, like Eric said.
And Aaron, I'll add, folks that have been through any of the Shivworks Collective courses are also going to leave feeling accomplished. They are going to be way, way more confident in their capabilities. And it's something that, again, every time Aaron and I get together, Cecil, you recall us as we were driving around together or eating lunch or dinner, is that our favorite memories together are somewhere wrapped around these courses. Mm-hmm. And the experience that you get, both the physicality and an accomplishment after finishing a course like yours or Craig's or Paul's, Chris's, all the collective guys, Larry, you're going to benefit exponentially in your path in self-defense. I mean, that's crucial. I think folks should seek the training out for that reason alone. Well, Aaron, I'd like to talk about our other sponsor, and that's Origin. Origin has Jocko Fuel, which are some of the best vitamins and supplements you can buy. And the reason I know is because I use them, and I know how I feel on those supplements, especially the joint warfare and the krill oil. Man, that stuff is really good for your joints and fending off injuries or helping with current injuries. one of the things that I noticed this week is that they released 2 new flavors for the Jocko Go, which, by the way, amazing drink, very healthy, real energy drink that also has nootropics in them. And they have a new couple of flavors. One is called Mango Mayhem, and I believe that is Echo Charles flavor. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and the other one is watermelon, but they call it whoop ass salt, like whoop ass. So pretty cool, man. They had some really cool themes. So yeah, those are great, nutritious and healthy energy drinks. So if you want to pick up some of those drinks, go to originmain.com and use EvoSec10 at checkout for 10% off. And I want to digress a second. I would be remiss if I didn't mention probably my favorite product that they produce are their gis. They are amazing. They are, again, no hyperbole here, the best gis made in the industry, just flat out. They are made with cotton grown in the USA, fabric woven on their looms, and stitched by workers that are in the United States. So bringing back U.S. manufacturing, that's really cool. So please go support us by going and supporting them. Again, EvoSec10 at checkout.
Now, let's go ahead and talk about day 3 on Sunday, where we focused on the clinch and surviving a knockout that you didn't see coming or a shot that you didn't see coming. And of course, many people understand that there's a default position that you use, a form of a helmet. But, most people that go to jiu-jitsu have this form of a helmet that they use. And it seems like, of course, so I take class and I always want to go into the default position I know that works better to keep me from getting knocked out, but I don't in those classes because it's just not what everybody's doing. And I've actually gotten made fun of. It was just a ribbing from one of my instructors. Like, what are you doing, Aaron? Well, something that works.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that they're not exposed to. Yep.
Something that's a hell of a lot better than what you're trying to make me do.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that little aspect of the day, because that was really important. Again, people get bruised up and work a lot more on that than we got to in ECQC. I really appreciated that. So can you go in a little bit on that and why? Do you see the same thing where, your typical jiu-jitsu gym is teaching a pretty wimpy helmet of some sort?
It's not even jiu-jitsu gyms. A ton of most people who've been working this, you get a lot of these guys in the last few years coming up who are trying to do this integrated combatives and weapon thing, but, are coming from a different area. Some of the reality-based self-defense combatives guys are trying to do this kind of stuff. A lot of people do it. Here's the problem. And I know this because there's a reason the default cover looks the way it does. It's because when we're all working this, Paul was doing his bits in the late 90s, and Craig was doing his bits. And then when we're all working together, early 2000, the way we tested this was we beat the hell out of each other. Right? We're actually doing this, and it would become, and we all played with this. It wasn't like Craig said, "Hey, let's do this," and we all fell in lockstep. That's not how it worked. We're all doing our little thing, and like, well, what about this? Maybe this works better. Maybe, people see this fully formed thing in 2021. This is not what it looked like in 2005. Right? So we're all doing this stuff and we're beating the hell out of each other. And it becomes really obvious that the only thing that really keeps you in the fight at that point is that setting it up as that default cover. All these other ones, these other helmet cover type positions don't do it because they're leaving some gap, some weakness somewhere. They're not covering one of the knockout points, or they're trying to make it a muscle thing, right? You're keeping your arms in that position through muscle power, which is great if you're a 230-pound athletic dude. Yeah, it'll work great for you. It's not going to work great for the 130-pound woman. So those guys, they here, and this is so much self-defense, both from the shooting side and the hand-to-hand side. Some guy just is like, hey, you know what? I think this will work really well. And he might tweak it for something, but he's not really putting it to the test. And then he goes, yeah, this works. Let's do it. And he starts teaching it, and it becomes gospel. Well, most of those things suck, right? You guys saw at any point, anybody could have done, especially when we were working like the final exercise and putting under pressure. Okay, somebody wants to do one of their other versions that they've seen from someplace else, a jiu-jitsu gym, a Krav Maga gym. I don't care. Go ahead. But here's the thing. Your partner's still punching. Your partner's still doing stuff. You know, if you can survive it and you've got another method, that's fine. I just haven't found it. You know, in 20 plus years of looking specifically to cover this idea of, okay, yes, if we had the awareness, if we were ready, if we were 100% mentally, physically, emotionally ready and prepared, yeah, we wouldn't have to deal with this problem. It wouldn't be a sucker punch. It wouldn't be that kind of surprise assault. But you know what? The world is as it is, right? Williams' thing was, the world is as it is, not as you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know, and you just gotta understand that. And part of that is you are going to mess up. You aren't going to be situationally aware all the time. You aren't going to be thinking, and you are going to get, or you have the potential for getting attacked by surprise. Well, you got to get through those first couple seconds. And if somebody shows, I'm not married to any of this stuff. I do and teach this stuff because it's the best thing I've found to work for most people over 20 plus years of actually putting it under realistic pressure. If somebody comes along and says, hey, here's something that works just as good or better, or just as good, but is easy to train, boom, I'm there. I'll dump whatever component, but it just doesn't happen because there are certain fundamental things that you have to do to not get knocked out, especially in that surprise situation. And the default cover just covers it better than the rest. I'm sorry, that's fine. They want to do their own thing. That's cool, but I haven't seen it yet. And I'm certainly open, right? I'm not somebody who's in my own little world. We're always looking at this, hey, what's this guy doing? Oh, let's look at that. Oh, look at. But generally, what I found is even the ones who used to have a more open helmet, a more lax helmet, you know what's happened? They've gone to more to the default cover. They won't do it completely that way, because then they're going to be forced to admit that they didn't really invent it. It was somebody else already did it. But they come as close as I saw one a couple of weeks ago that some guys out of the UK were trying to do. And it was basically the default cover if you looked at it in the mirror. Right? And so it was just different enough that they say, oh, it's not default cover. Yeah, basically that's what they were doing. Basically that's what they were doing. And it's like, all right, that's cool. They just have to have one arm a little bit higher on the head. Okay, whatever. It's just, I don't think it's default cover works, and I'm a believer in it. That's why we're spending those couple hours first thing in the morning to really groove it in, to make sure. And then especially when that person then goes back to EWO or ECQC or a similar type class, and you're put in those scenarios that it becomes now under that stress, you can hit default cover.
Well, and I think I'd like to make sure that the audience, and some of our audience probably, I hear pressure testing one more time.
Right.
There's like, that's likely not going to be the case. But in case there is, everything we're talking about, Cecil has been involved in the pressure testing under a fully non-compliant environment. And these are the things that in fact work. And they work in that pressure environment. I think it's important for us to drive that home every time we talk about it. With that said, let's go ahead and segue into one of the things that Aaron, you hit on that you were real pumped about for Becky was we also hit very hard on dialing in the number 2 pectoral index firing position that folks that are exposed to ECQC are very much acquainted with, both live fire and whatnot. But Cecil, you also had your details that just really made a lot of sense to those of us that are multi-time alumni, got a lot out of. And again, a piece of the class that we were kind of surprised we weren't tracking we were going to do that much in the pistol side, but that was another welcomed piece of the course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a piece I put in maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I hadn't before, but I was seeing people making the same mistakes over and over again. Even guys who've been through ECQC multiple times. Because let's face it, it's very difficult to work that in a live fire on a range.
Yep.
Very few of us have that option to do it all the time, to work shooting from the 2, shooting from that high compressed 3 on a regular basis from the holster. It's not that easy. So a lot of people don't practice it. They don't, and it looks simple, right? You do thumb pectoral index and you learn it, the way Craig teaches it, and it looks simple. So everybody thinks, oh, I've got it. After ECQC, I got it down, except they don't.
Right.
Because no skill's that way. That's not how any of us ingrain skill unless we're some kind of physical athletic phenom. In which case we're probably playing in the NBA or NHL, making ungodly multi-millions every year. We're not screwing around in self-defense stuff. So I saw that and I'm like, well, wait, we're talking about in-fight weapons access and using a gun in an entanglement or using it where it's almost an entanglement, and people aren't getting that. We can talk about what is a timing decision, and you can talk about the intellectually about it, but that doesn't mean people are getting it. So that's why on both days I spend some time on it, both from the ground. Hey, what does it look like here? And in the clinch. You've got to get some time in. All right, you got this guy under control. Cool. You're going to shoot him. Cool. How are you going to do that? Are you making sure that you're doing it correctly? Is the gun going where you think it is? Or do you have the control on this person long enough to get that gun out? All these things, you can't practice at live fire. And it's not that easy to do even with sims or UTMs. This is where like a blue gun or a cert, especially. I love the cert, especially for this kind of stuff. This is where this shines, because now you can get that feedback without any danger at all, but it's still telling you, here's what we need to do. And so I put that in a few years ago, and I think it's pretty important because it starts to get that idea across that this is difficult. And and what drives me crazy is, at close range, you just have to point it at them and you're not going to miss. And I'm like, no, that's not how it actually works. And so it's a good way for me to show that with the cert, how easy it is to miss, even when you are basically in contact with somebody.
Oh yeah, Cecil, you did a superb job of showing a miss from what is likely indiscernible angle change to most people standing there. And I would say that there, especially folks that were new to that shooting position probably were like, my gosh, I had no clue. You know, a complete miss with barely a discernible angle change, and the use of the SIRT pistol was an excellent demonstration of that. And I'm sure people got a lot of, I know I did, and you know, just a really good addition to the class. And I'll also hit on this real quick, and I'd really like to talk about the impact of the clinch piece we did, but I don't want to breeze over the fact you also, the proper extension or compression of the pistol, you also had us do an excellent drill multiple times on really dialing that in. Again, that you can't do that with live fire. You just can't do that. And that was a superb drill for helping people understand, okay, I cannot extend my pistol this far when I'm in this range with my opponent or an assailant. And that was another excellent drill, but well done.
Thanks. Again, it's the same thing. I saw this problem. I saw that actually came out from when I started teaching my close contact handgun class. And so much that class is all about not getting entangled. Don't let it go hands on. You either deselect and de-escalate the situation so that there's no violence at all, or if there is, you can get the gun and use it properly, anywhere from the 3 to full extension. But I came up with that drill as a way to reinforce that. And I'm like, well, why am I teaching it just in close contact? I'll just teach it in the full coursework, the IAC coursework, because it gets that idea across. And again, I think people don't understand how close too far away actually is. You know,
yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, he's far enough away. No, you know what? The Frankenstein drill pretty much brings it home that, no, you're probably wrong.
Yeah, the Frankenstein drill. Yeah, that's awesome.
You don't. So yeah, I like doing that. I think that's a good one. And again, you know, it's not a long time. What did we spend 10 minutes doing it? 15 minutes?
Yeah,
it's not like it's
10 minutes.
It's a huge thing, but it gets that idea across, you know, quickly. And again, like you can't do it live fire. Duh. Even UTMs or sims is problematic because you can then you go, okay, everybody stop. Let's put on iPro. Let's put on helmets. Let's put on a protective gear and run it with UTMs. Well, with blue guns, you get everything you need. You get everything across like, oh, he's really close. I'm thinking I can get away with shooting this guy at 3 or 4 yards. No, you know what? He probably better be at 5 and out for me to stick that gun all the way out. But it's not me saying it, right? I can say that, but then the student doesn't own it when they discover it for themselves because they screw up and they go, oh, that's why Cecil says this. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and Cecil, I want to double down on what you just said regarding sims and UTM. All of us that are in this walk, we understand how important any kind of marking cartridges, the pain penalty, all this, all of us, you know, we believe that is crucial in our training.
Absolutely.
I do believe, however, and I'll forgive me, I'll just say it on the air. I can correct myself in the show notes, but I could have sworn that it was Claude Warner that posted a pamphlet or a small book, maybe you might remember, but it was about simulation. And what it drove home is a real short, and it may have even been Tom Givens. So I'm going to make sure that I put that in the show notes since I'm airing it. But I think it's important. An important side note is it goes into saying, yes, simunitions, UTM is great. Everybody should be doing it. But what's easier to implement is blue guns.
Yep.
And getting 95% of the value. You know, I maybe 95%, not the accurate.
No, but you get most. You get the
majority of it.
You get the majority of it, and you can do it anywhere. You don't have to be on a range. You don't have to be in an environment where you could shoot the walls up and nobody cares. You could be anywhere and get a blue gun, get a cert, and start doing that stuff. And then you get most of the work, and you go, all right, we've really honed this. We've really dialed this in. let's go to the range and let's put the fist helmet on. Let's put the eye pro on. Let's put, our little shooting gloves on. And then let's go with the UTMs or sims and, make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. But that way because here's the mistake is, do you get a lot out of force on force evolution? Absolutely. You get stuff that you can't get any other way. However, there is nobody who can do hours and hours of force on force evolutions multiple times a week after week after week. It's just not possible. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the locations. We don't have the physical ability to recover enough to do that. But we can do it with blue guns. We can do it up, we can still get a ton. And then let's check. Let's validate it. Let's see if it's validated with the force on force stuff. Now you need them all. You need all the components. But I think that's what gets lost a lot. But you need reps. You have to do reps on any physical action that we're going to do, whether it's muck, whether it's moving with the gun in your hand, whether it's trying to understand the geometry of a structure, whether it's trying to do a sweep, whether it's trying to get the gun out and shoot. It doesn't matter. Whether it's trying to play a guitar, play drums, you need repetition. You can have the best instructor and the best gear teaching you stuff. But if you spend a weekend seminar at your guitar seminar under the best instructor, great. And you learn a lot and you're much better. But then if you don't do anything with it until maybe a year later when you take the seminar again, you're not, I doubt you're any better.
Right.
As opposed to, okay, in the meantime, I'm going to play, Daniel, row your boat ashore, an hour a day. You know what I mean? And then, But now you're improving. Everything needs reps, including this understanding of shooting from the 2, shooting from the 3. When is appropriate extension compression? All this stuff needs to be just done over and over again.
Well, Cecil, I think it's a good point of the show because we're sitting here a little bit long, but we cannot not discuss the impact of, and I'll just use your word, the essentials of Clinch that we went over. And again, all of us that are ECQC alum have very much been exposed to the essentials that we covered in your course. I'll use myself as an example. I've also been training with a very prominent Greco world-class instructor. And again, I learned a ton from him. But then your methodologies of, you got to teach the technical, especially the new folks, if they've never been exposed to an underhook, an overhook, wrist tie, a bicep tie, an arm drag, a 2-on-1. If they've never been exposed to those techniques, they have to see them. Yep. To try to conceptualize it is going to be very difficult if they've not seen it. So you dive into teaching, okay, this is what these hooks look like, underhook, overhook, so on and so forth. But then you progress, and Aaron, I'd like you to hit on this because, again, this was super impactful for you, is that all the years that I've been doing Greco, and then, again, the additional instruction that I've gotten over the last year and a half, is this it was a huge impact on my clinch. And just Cecil, again, it's like, I cannot emphasize enough how much, if you've been exposed to certain techniques and then you just have an instructor like yourself be able to tie it together so impactfully, it was awesome. I learned a ton. My clinch is going to change again for the better because of your course.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Eric, to put it the way I described it was, we had worked all day and then Cecil kind of pulled a M. Night Shyamalan, twist on us. And like all of a sudden, what? You just, wait a minute. What happened there? And then it just comes together. And yeah, it was awesome. Again, it's simple, but at the same time, you can't grasp it until you go through the reps of the other stuff of the technique and then bring it down to these essentials that you taught us. So, again, that was the most brilliant part of the course to me, was that very end of day 3. Again, like my wife said, the progression and the accuracy of the progression that you took us through was awesome, and it really culminated at that point.
Well, and Cecil, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember you saying at that point, and I saw it myself, because I saw not just those of us that had Greco or Clinch experience. I was monitoring, also seeing those that had never had any Clinch, and it was when you culminated at the end and just gave a positive imprint. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
gave it a positive imprint in how to execute, and it was a paradigm shift in everybody from the explanation you gave, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, everybody is clinching correctly. It was. I saw that, and so I'm trying to capture this as the experience as best I can. I hope I'm describing it properly.
Well, it's always funny to see because, I'm pretty proud of that material and proud of the teaching of it and stuff. But until I see the students then do it, I'm never quite sure, right?
Yeah.
But then you walk them through those last evolutions of doing the clinch work, and now they look 180 degrees different. Even the people who had clinch before, everybody looks so different than when they did when we started hours before. And it's like, yeah, you see any high level wrestler will come in and go, oh yeah, this is a good wrestling group. You know what I mean? It's that
Yep.
Everybody's getting it. And it just, as an instructor, that makes me feel awesome, because I don't want anybody to copy me. Right? I've already walked the path for 42 years. Here's the smart thing to do. Copy all the good stuff and avoid all my mistakes. So then if I could shortcut what took me 42 years to figure out, and now I can give it to you, and now you're only do it in 15, great, because then maybe you're going to figure it out, and then the next generation is only going to take them 7 or 8 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a good way of seeing that I'm at least on the right path when I see that sea change in everybody, because I'm not walking them through it, right? I'm giving them the parameters, but the actions that they did were all their own, right? I didn't tell, hey, now you do this. It was like, okay, here's what you're going to do in the drill. Go, boom. And what they did in the drill, it was completely on their own. It was organic and authentic to them, which means then I know that they own it. They can take it home and they can go, they don't need me looking over their shoulder to coach them on this. They're going to get better.
Well, it's experiential if I'm using the correct word. What I will say, I want to really close this portion of the clinch discussion so our audience that may be new to this understands the impact of the standing clinch. If you do not have a standing clinch, this is the most important thing to understand, is the hands are what kill. They are what can access weapons, and that is why the clinch is so crucial. And this method that Cecil and the Shivworks Collective espouse is what's going to keep you in the most likelihood of from getting a knife stuck in you, or at least have the chance to fight that off and to have some form of control. And if I'll just put it this way, if a person has a good foundation in clinch, nothing is ever guaranteed on the street. The good guy has a vote. You said that a lot. That's a phrase I like to use a lot as well. The good guy has a vote. So you may be the most awesome MMA stud and may not come out on top.
You mean the bad guy has a vote? Do you mean?
Did I say good guy?
Yeah.
By golly, that was completely Freudian slip there. The bad guy has a vote. And frankly, you may not come out on top, but the likelihood, if you have this foundation, you are likely going to win the fight, plain and simple. So yeah, I just wanted to drive that home on the importance of the clinch, Cecil. Excellent job.
Thanks.
Superb class. And man, this is the other point I wanted to make, is that folks that have taken ECQC know the impactfulness and know that you can take it for the rest of your life, once a year, twice a year, every other year, and the same material, you will gain more experience, gain more knowledge and more capabilities. And plus the evolutions are, they're going to be different every time. You can continue to take ECQC. You can also continue to take Cecil's immediate action, jiu-jitsu, and pugilism courses over and over and over again and get the same type of learning experience. You're going to learn something every single time, a different experience. So Cecil's course is something that you can take over and over again. And I know with EvoSec and our crew, we're going to continue to host Cecil and continue to take the class. Guy is supposed to be doing the course here in North Carolina, I believe. If that's still a go, I'm going to take it when it's here shortly, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cecil. I'm gonna go right away, because I know it's the same material, but I'm gonna learn again. So I just wanted to really close that point. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, that kind of brings me to a fun question. I've got a couple of questions here, and then we can let Cecil go. But when it comes to because we definitely are going to start hosting you here more, what other courses would you envision offering here also, Cecil? Any ideas?
I only do a couple. I mean, I only do a couple different things, really. I have a couple collaborative classes I teach. Mm-hmm. But that's sort of like, special occasion type stuff.
Yeah.
So the other ones I do my confined space combatives, which is basically everything we did that weekend, but now it's done in really messed up confined spaces. It's done, in a restaurant booth, on a bar stool, at a picnic table, in the seat of a bus, or something like that. I love that class. The problem is it's so hard to set up because you've got to have the extras to do it. You can't just put a couple chairs out and stuff. It has to be. So I just did it in Denver in May, and we had a school bus, which was great because that simulates so much stuff. That's a school bus. That's an airplane. That's a subway car. That's so many different things. And, we could fight in the seats. We could fight in the aisles. That's a great one. And then we went to a actual house that the local SWAT team uses for operations, for practicing. So there was crappy furniture all over the place, and beds and tables and bathrooms and all this kind of stuff. So, I just put on my evil thinking instructor hat and came up with just some really messed up stuff. So I like that class a lot. It just takes all that the immediate action combative stuff, and then puts it into specific environments. So, but I like that class. The only other one I really teach a lot is close contact handgun, which is a day and a half. It's like 4 hours on Friday night, where it's basically muck. That's what we hit. Muck, over and over and over again. Muck. The only thing we do slightly different, I mean, it's our take on it. It's our own take. It's not, I'm not regurgitating Craig stuff. The foundation obviously is Craig's materials. That's why I call it managing unknown contact, because it's his material. It's not, hey, Cecil's pre-fight strategy. No, this is managing unknown contacts. We do plug in how you actually use a handheld light to help you out, because we are in the dark most of the time. Even on a range or something, we'll turn off even if there's overhead lights, we'll turn off the lights, and you can see how that kind of stuff can help muck. And then the next day is about 9 hours. We're about 3 hours live fire. And then the rest of the class essentially is we're using UTMs in doing force on force stuff. That's a really good class because there's no contact. Like if during the scenarios, if the bad guy actually makes contact, done, cut. Because then what we get across to people is, look, you probably don't have the skill set to fight there, which means you're probably going to die. So either don't let that happen by working the stuff that we work in class over and over again, or start looking at the actual, clinch and jiu-jitsu aspect of this as well. But it's a way to get people who are afraid of doing the physical contact stuff, but still giving them the important stuff like muck, right? I think that's such a crucial thing.
The most crucial, possibly.
Yeah, I would argue that between that and maybe some kind of physical fitness, those two things would probably be, 1A and 1B, as far as, living a life. But so those are the three main ones I do. I could certainly, we could certainly do any of those. If we had the space, if we find the venue for the confined space class, that's really good. Close contact's good.
I'm torn between. I'm torn between those last two that we talked about. Which one I'd like to do next, man? Those both sound great.
Well, really cool. Go ahead.
I like them. They're both, like I said. That's the and I'm trying. I think the important stuff is what we covered in that weekend, or the muck stuff and close contact handgun, right? So I don't want to just do, here's a bunch of other stuff. Well, I can do this class. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Whatever. I want to focus on the stuff that I think is the most important, the most crucial for people to stay alive and to stay safer and to be more capable. So, I mean, the bulk of it, 80% of what I teach is what we already did.
Well, like Eric said, it's great to take it over and over again. So we'll have to get all together and figure out what we're going to have here again, maybe next year.
Sure.
Well, I have one more question, Cecil, and then we'll let you go. So lots of people know, all your Tulsa buddies know that you love coming here because of Brahms.
Yep.
Okay, so we were
That's
hanging.
One of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons.
That may be the most important reason, but it's only one of the reasons.
So, and I'll say Cecil did not pig out on ice cream, but I think he had one scoop. Now, what did you get? I didn't even notice what you got. That's the question.
Butter pecan. My default is butter pecan.
Cool.
That's what I'll generally get. I can. I think one time, actually, it was in Tulsa. They had black raspberry, which I love as a flavor, but it's not particular. It's popular on the East Coast, but you don't see it a whole lot of places. And so I was at Brahms, and I was with Mike Brown and Dave, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, oh man, I love black raspberry, but I love the butter pecan. So I ended up getting the black raspberry because it was like one of their special occasional flavors. So I got that, and it was great. But then I'm sitting there going, man, I really love the butter pecan too. So those enablers, they go, well, why don't you get that too? And I'm like, you know what? I'm an adult. I can actually make that decision. So I walked back up and got another scoop of butter pecan. That was the most pigging out I've ever done at Brahms was that time.
Well, one of the things that I want to really make sure that I hit on, because we would be remiss if we did not say a special thanks to Guy Schnitzler. Man, awesome meeting him and training with him and learning from him, because he's been a supporter of our show, and he was Cecil's assistant instructor. Man, what a great dude, and I look forward to training with him again in the future. I also would like to mention it was incredible seeing Mike Brown. You know, I sit there and thought through it. I think the last time that I actually saw Mike was back in 2003.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't think I've been around Mike since it, because just everything just didn't come together the times I was home. So it was awesome seeing him, and really cool seeing and meeting Mike Seeklander as well. Yep. So wanted to shout out to those guys for coming out and supporting and watching us through our Evos. That was cool. Yeah, and having dinner.
And dinner. It was having Guy as an assistant makes it an easier day for me. He's so great. He understands the material. He's so good at getting ideas across, and he's so approachable as an instructor. He's terrific. You know, and he's got such a wealth of knowledge on his own outside of anything I've taught him. He's got such a depth and breadth of knowledge otherwise. That was great. You know, it was great being able to hang out for so long with Mike Brown, especially there, like when I'm teaching, not like I'm just visiting in Tulsa, but actually teaching in Tulsa, where he got me started. So it was great. And then I don't get to see Seeklander that often, so it was great that he was able, even with his ridiculously busy schedule, to be able to come by, a couple different times and spend some time hanging out with us. And I talked to him on the phone a couple times too, just trying to, just chatting and stuff. So that was great. I mean, like I said, it was such a great seminar across the board. The people were great. Everything was great. I got Brahms. I got Ron's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Ron's the last day was awesome.
Yeah, I got Ron's. I mean, it was just so great across the board. It was such a fun thing. Thanks so much for hosting me, guys. I appreciate it so much, and thanks for the kind words, especially the testimonials from the students at the beginning. I don't hear that very often. Cool. Because I don't beg for it, right? Oh, send me your stuff. So it's I think it works. I think people enjoy it. But it's always nice when people take time to actually write something like that and put into words. It's nice. I want the coursework to be meaningful. I want it to. I know how transformative ECQC is for a lot of people. And if I can approach even that just slightly, I think I'm doing a pretty good job with stuff. If I can make those lights go off in people's, brains the same way Craig does, I'll be like, that's a pretty damn good accomplishment. A lot of instructors don't even come close.
No, not at all, Cecil. And I will say from my wheelhouse that it was that impactful.
Oh yeah,
and transformative. So thank you very much. You deserve the accolades, and we had an incredible time. A memory for life and learning experience for life. So thank you very much.
And like I said, it was great. Thank you for the kind words about all that. I appreciate it very much.
Well, we're going to do it again soon. So with that said,
apparently even then everybody was like, when are you coming back? So, so I guess it went pretty well.
Oh yeah. Well, I guarantee you we're going to have a lot of the same people there. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Good.
Well, Cecil, thanks for coming on again, and thanks for making the record for the most times being on our show at 3. There's a couple of guys nipping at your heels now, but you are the king of appearances. So maybe we
So
can,
I'm gonna have to start paying attention to the next few guests to make sure nobody comes touching my record, or I might have to send Larry
Kneecap?
out to go kill people.
awesome. Well, you coming on here supports us a lot. Hopefully, we get to return a bit of that too. And man, just had a blast at the class. And thanks so much for spending your time with us. We know your time is valuable, so thank you so much. You have a good evening, buddy.
You too, guys. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Good night, Cecil. Good night, Aaron. Well, I think it's time to move into our accountability for the week. Man, I got some really good accountability and some bad accountability. So,
Same here.
yeah, so it's the way it goes sometimes. We're not only just human, but we're also busy human beings as well. So sometimes that's the way it shakes out. So as far as my accountability, I had 3 morning workouts. I'm still on a cardio-centric workout system, which I did 2 long sustained duration or LSD workouts using the 2.0 cardio system that Joel Jameson recommends. Which if you got to do 45 minutes to an hour and a half, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour. That's sufficient of cardio. I don't get bored using all the methodologies, keep moving, like I've mentioned before, kettlebells, treadmill, rower, jump rope, shadow boxing, Jiu-Jitsu solo drills, which I'll hit on here in a second. All of those just maintaining my heart rate between 120, 140. And man, that has paid huge dividends in my cardiovascular and lowering my resting heart rate. I did have 1 strength workout. In about 2 weeks, I'm going back to where I'll focus more on strength and dial back the cardio. Did some chin-ups, squats with the barbell, and did a kettlebell circuit, which was still some cardio as well, but strength-focused. So I've been turning up the dry fire. Aaron, you and I talked about the last show that we kind of hadn't been hitting the dry fire as hard as we normally do, but I'm prepping for some classes that my son Nick and I are starting. We're actually going to have our 8-hour EvoSec defensive pistol course this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
having Nick come up for that is going to be awesome. I've mentioned him before. He's a Marine. He's a Marine Corps firearms instructor, and he's going to start giving me a hand here in North Carolina with the EvoSec classes. So, man, I'm so pumped about that, and he's excited too. So, pretty cool. So, yeah, my dry fire regiment is really based on preparing for that, and also had actually got a live fire session in this week. So, again, I have a range challenge and still trying to get a range home, but I'm skipping around and also have access to some private land. So 1 session there, so I was pretty pumped about that because I have not been shooting live very much the last couple of months. As far as jiu-jitsu goes, this is where my major accountability is. So I have a little bit of a challenge in the current gym I work out at, is that they only have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday classes and a Sunday open mat. Well, I was working late. It seems both of the primary days I normally go are Tuesday and Thursday. I should have went Monday. I could have. That's my accountability. I had stuff going on at the house, and I'm like, oh, I got tomorrow, Tuesday. Well, that cost me a jiu-jitsu workout, and Chris, my buddy, and I couldn't make our garage jiu-jitsu workout. So I'm a little bit bummed I didn't get any jiu-jitsu classes this last week, but luckily tomorrow is Tuesday. I'm back to jiu-jitsu, so I'm looking forward to that.
That's good.
Drumming, man, Aaron, I've been I have been able to hit my drumming fairly hard. I've even been doing practice pad work in the morning when I'm waking up, just, 10, 15 minutes of a little bit here and there. And
Awesome.
even working late, my wife supports me playing my drums. Get home just a little later. Neighbors don't care. It's only about, I think most of my practice sessions are about 8 or so at night. So no big deal. Primarily have been working on jazz, so it's pretty quiet. So yeah,
Cool.
man, I just had such a renaissance in my drumming. I've really been enjoying it, and it's good for me mentally too. So,
I just interject a little bit. The fact that, our listeners that have been with us for a while, if they can think back, you would talk about playing drums, etc. But it was always, I'm a drummer, and yeah, we do some recording for the show, etc. But no, now it's just like you're on fire with it.
oh yeah,
Just you added one more intense, intentional practice thing to your schedule. So that's really cool. And of course, it makes me super happy because of how into practicing music I am. So I love hearing about it every time you tell me.
Well, and Aaron, I mentioned this many times before too. It is exactly what Miyamoto Musashi said. It's like the martial artist has to have art for balance, and my drumming has been that for me is my balance, and making sure that it's not all the fight. It's also the art that really, helps my brain decompress. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, man. So I think that does it for me, Aaron.
Okay. Well, I will jump in here and talk a little bit about my fitness stuff. I had one 45-minute cardio workout on my stationary bike. And anytime I do that, I throw in some mobility exercise for my spine. I've got a few issues with my spine that don't get onto me too bad, but they've been bugging me. Been getting some sciatica going on a little bit, so I've been working on some specific stretches. People don't realize, I bet you some of our astute audience knows, but the muscles in the front of your leg and thigh actually have a lot to do with how tight your lower back is.
Oh, absolutely. Especially like your psoas.
Yes. So I have a stretch that I do for that, and it really helps, and I can tell when I don't do that.
Hey, Aaron, by the way, do you use Becky's So Right for your psoas?
No, I haven't yet. Maybe I need to do that.
Bro, you need to get on that, man. That is huge. Like, it'll change you, man, as far as your lower back. Yeah, you need to get on that.
I'll ask her about that tonight.
And Aaron, can I interject one thing, something that I forgot to say? I didn't get to jiu-jitsu, but I also did a lot of video review, and you mentioned about your mobility. I most assuredly, in my morning workouts with my mobility, did solo jiu-jitsu drills. And
cool.
I just wanted to bring that up. That is so crucial if you've got time, our audience members out there, when you're doing your workouts. Jiu-jitsu drills are awesome mobility exercises. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Well, and so speaking of, in my 45-minute cardio bike ride, I sat my Mac laptop on top of my kicking bag. I've got one of those kicking bags with water in it,
Oh, yeah.
I put the bag far enough down and then sat my laptop on top of it, and it was perfect right there in front of my bike to set my laptop so I could watch my my testing videos for my combatives test.
Awesome.
Now and then I did about three 30-minute walks with my wife. Again, I'm not hitting the workouts too heavy, but I am doing something. I'm gonna need to get back into strength work here real soon. But I did. Let's see here. Let me make sure I'm going in my right direction here. Yeah. So I did have 2 short dry fire sessions, but just so you know, Eric, I was trying to squeeze a dry fire session in here before we got on, but you just had to get on early.
Sorry about that, bro.
I mean, I was going to be able to say 3 dry fire sessions this week.
Well,
Now I only had to do 2.
well,
Now I
let's
only
just
could
say
2.
this right after we get off here, man. Just execute
Oh,
it.
100%. But man, it doesn't log on to our next accountability.
gotcha.
That's the lame part. But yeah, a couple of short dry fire sessions. I did make it to the range 2 times last week. And first off, I got there and I discovered the Federal Syntech match loads, and actually discovered that on a thread that Chuck Haggard was talking about them, how legit they were and how accurate they were. And I thought, I'm going to get some of those. They aren't that expensive. So I zeroed my my 507C with those 124 grain Syntex. And then, actually, let me turn this back around. Before I did that, every time I show up to the range, I do a cold draw first thing. And my time was a second 57. I like to beat that at least under 1.5 seconds. But, a cold draw, I'm okay with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and FYI, how I'm testing my draws, that is, of course, AIWB from concealment at 3 yards. And the shot's got to be in the 8-inch circle. So, but then, I zeroed after I did my cold draw, and then I just focused on 2 drills in both of these sessions. It was all without a clock, all without drawing. All I would do is just extend, do 3 shots, and then go back to the number 3 position. It was all about focusing on my grip, my trigger finger placement that my dot has taught me, which is basically on the crease of my finger, and then hard target focus. So what this comes down to is that I'm still needing some recoil time on these dots. So just, letting your eyes do what they do, if you just let them revert back to what you're used to, focusing on a sight, you'll end up focusing on your dot too.
I could see that.
Yeah, so I'm, when I'm rolling out on a pretty quick string in a IDPA competition, there's not much time where you can think about that stuff. But when I'm really trying to focus on my accuracy and follow up shots, I could tell that I really need some more time on it, and it's paying off. But I'm going to keep doing that for the next few rounds at the range. And then same thing, but I did the 4th string of the 5x5 IDPA, which is the 4 to the body, 1 to the head, and again, still same exact focus, grip, finger placement, and then hard target focus. So now, let me make sure I'm not skipping anything on shooting. No, now. I did not get to go to any jits last week because our gym was closed because the instructors were going to an academy to learn how to teach police combatives.
Oh,
so they were shut down for a bit.
Well, we know the efficacy of that. We need our LEO brothers and sisters out there learning jiu-jitsu for keeping them safe and also giving them the best option for controlling suspects so it doesn't go to a shoot, even if it ends up being a good shoot,
Oh, yeah. We know that. Like we've said, if not every cop has to be a blue belt, but every cop on the street, if they were a blue belt, they would be able to handle themselves a lot more for sure. Wouldn't you agree, Eric? Was it blue or purple that you kind of wish they would get to?
My opinion, Aaron, is blue. there's been some say, hey, everybody get a purple, but that, man, I think that's way, I'm not saying they couldn't, but the dedication to get purple belt, I just don't see that being in the wheelhouse of a lot of police officers because everything else they have to do. But man, if they could strive for a blue belt, that'd be awesome. But man, bare minimum, 6 months of jiu-jitsu for any police officer is going to be killer on the street. And I say killer. I probably shouldn't use that phrase. How about we'll
You're
be
just using your rock vernacular there, brother.
It's exactly what I was doing. My rock and roll vernacular. No, just the amount of control that they will gain and also confidence that they'll have in a grappling situation, which we know when you're trying to cuff somebody, you're grappling. So,
Yep. Okay, Eric, so all that said, after our class with Cecil and our last interview with Todd Fox, there's a theme between both of those awesome guys, and it's keeping things as simple, fundamental, and as principle as possible within jiu-jitsu and grappling, and that to me is a lot less focus on lots of techniques. And so I'm going to be kind of rethinking exactly how I train jiu-jitsu based on that class. And again, the things that Todd mentioned, Eric, if you remember, he said he went and won the American Nationals by sticking to very, very simple techniques.
Well, and Cecil mentioned multiple times about, especially when we were doing the half guard, which the half guard we did was 3 primary techniques, and Cecil said, man, I'm a black belt, been a black belt for 13 years, and I still go for these primary techniques every single time. My students, quoting Cecil, they know they got to stop me from doing these 3 techniques in half guard, if I remember exactly how he said it. But then he mentioned when we were having an awesome lunch before we dropped him off at the airport, about just only a handful of submissions. And I think all of us can learn from that. Again, does Cecil not have a ton of other techniques and submissions? Of course he does. He's a black belt. But he still focuses on those essentials, as he said it. Essentials.
Yeah.
And yes, we can all, as I'm sitting here and, hopefully, my goal right now this year is this next year and a half or so, hopefully, I'm working towards my purple belt, and it's changed my thought process on how I will execute my jiu-jitsu path. And so, yeah, man, both Todd and Cecil, man, excellent learning and what we should be focusing on.
Well, bro, I'm not going to say a ton about it, but I am starting to question the, how do I put it? The focus on running whites and blue belts through so many techniques that they can't remember them. I just know that it's common in some schools to have, techniques so much in their upper levels that they literally don't come back around to the same technique in a year.
Oh yeah.
I just don't understand that. Again, I'm just gonna be looking at how I'm gonna spend my time when it comes to how I'm training jiu-jitsu as I get here closer to blue belt, etc. So
I know exactly what you mean, bro. As I'm approaching purple, it's caused the same schism in my thought process, and so yeah, yep.
I mean, I'm not a black belt, I'm not even a blue belt yet, but it just makes sense to me as someone who teaches firearms and teaches music and other things, that it just seems to me that cutting down the amount of things to really learn, let's just say cutting it down by half or down to a quarter, and then mastering that stuff.
Well, and Aaron, I know this is a little bit, it's probably not the best example, but I will use it anyway. Gordon Ryan and Gary Tonin, Craig Jones, all the guys in the Danaher Death Squad. Yeah, they're obviously Gordon Ryan's the number one no-gi grappler in the world. That is demonstrable. There's nobody better than him right now. They have a system in all of their techniques, and I know that's why I'm trying not to be contradictory, but in world-class jiu-jitsu, they still have these fundamentals that they have systemized. And it's very similar. So if I can kind of use that as an example, even though it's very, very complex in many ways, they still break down things very systematically and in a way reductionist. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's, I want to be careful that I don't use too much of that reductionist when it comes to their system. But it is true. They have this system, and there's a given set of techniques that those guys focus on in a overall heuristic method that's also demonstrable. So yeah.
Well, I just wonder if I really do just wonder if it's the best way for students to learn is to be overwhelmed with the dozens and dozens of techniques that they're going to work on during a year or something.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
But that's just my feelings, especially full circle after what we learned from Cecil at this class, and then again how Todd echoed that with no reference to Cecil Burch whatsoever. Just two like-minded people knowing how simplifying things, going for high percentage techniques really works. So Eric, we're kind of talking here, and we need to let our audience go.
We're a little long in the tooth.
Yeah, I did want to say one more thing that people have maybe heard me talk about this, my vision, and I don't remember if I even talked about this on the air, that I ended up actually in the last few years realizing that I had early onset cataracts. Mm-hmm. Well, I went to the doctor last week, and she said, okay, your cataracts are... So long story short, I was wanting new glasses because my vision had dropped significantly in the last few months. And she said, I can only help your vision just a little bit with new lenses. She goes, your vision issues are your cataracts. So she said that I need to get my eyes fixed sooner rather than later. I've got a different kind of cataract that, people think that, the normal kind of cataract is like, when people get a little bit older, it's almost like they get these yellow eye drops dropped on their eyes and their eyes yellow. But mine are like these cloudy things that are non-uniform behind my lenses. So, but long story short, I think I'm going to try and get my eyes fixed by the end of the year, at least start the process.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to it, man, because same thing with these red dots, and I'm still not shooting wonderful out at distance, say 25 yards, even with the red dot. Hey, I'm shooting 8-inch circles just fine, but I know I could tighten that up a little bit. So just actually kind of looking forward to that, but it was kind of wild being told, hey, you really need to get this done sooner than later.
Yeah, well, man, I think that's going to be good, and I'm sure that that your vision is going to get a lot better after that, and you'll reap benefits. So, well, cool, man. Well, bro, what do you think, man? I think we should close this out.
Sounds great.
It's been awesome, man. As always, awesome conversation with you, man. Love sharing this with you.
It is wonderful. That's for sure. Well, buddy, you have a good evening there, and I'm going to go play some guitar. Oh yeah, I need a dry fire next.
That's right. I got my dry fire done before this, so I can just chill. Nice. Get some. Hey, man, have a good one, brother. Take care.
You too. Good night.
Bye.